Uncle Storytime. Story 1. The Princess and the Deceitful Slave, an African folktale of innocence and betrayal. Nzambi had a most beautiful daughter, and she took the greatest care of her. As the child grew up, she was kept within the house and never allowed to go outside, her mother alone waiting upon her. When she arrived at the age of puberty, her mother determined to send her to a town a long way off so that she might be undisturbed while she underwent her purification in the paint house. She gave her child a slave, and these two left Nzambi's town for the distant place where the paint house was situated. "Oh, see there, slave, what is that?" said Nzambi's daughter. "Give me your anklets and I will tell you," answered the slave. The daughter of Nzambi gave the slave the anklets. "That is a snake." They walked along for some time when suddenly the daughter of Nzambi said, "Oh slave, what is that?" "Give me your 2 new cloths and I will tell you." Nzambi's daughter gave the slave the 2 cloths. "That is an antelope." They had not gone far when the daughter again noticed something strange. "Slave, tell me what that thing is." "Give me your bracelets." The girl gave the slave her bracelets. "That thing is an eagle." The princess thought it wonderful that the slave should know so much more than she did, and when she caught sight of a thing rising gently from the ground, she turned to her again and asked, "And what is that?" "Give me your coral necklace." The girl gave the slave the coral. "That is a butterfly." The next time she asked the slave for information, the slave made her change clothes with her, so that while the princess was nearly naked, the slave was dressed most beautifully. In this fashion, they arrived at their destination and delivered their message to the prince. After the proper preparations, they placed the slave in the paint house with all the ceremony due to a princess, and they set the daughter of Nzambi to mind the plantations. In her innocence and ignorance, the daughter of Nzambi at first thought all this was in order and part of what she had to go through, but in a very short time she began to realize her position and to grieve about it. She used to sing plaintive songs as she minded the maize, songs of how she had been mistaken for a slave, while her slave was honored as a princess. The people thought her mad, but one day a trade caravan passed her, and she asked the trader where he was going. "To Nzambi's town," he answered. "Will you then take a message to Nzambi for me?" The trader gladly assented. "Then tell her that her daughter is working as a slave, watching the plantations, while the slave is in the paint house." He repeated the message, and when she had confirmed that it was correct, he went on his way and delivered it to Nzambi. Nzambi and her husband immediately set out in their hammock, accompanied by many followers, for the town where she had sent her daughter. When she arrived, she was greatly shocked to see her daughter in that mean position, and would have punished the prince had she not seen that he and his people were not to blame. They called upon the slave to come out of the paint house, but she was afraid and would not come out. Then they entered, and having stripped her of all her borrowed finery, they shut her within the house and burnt her. Story 2. The Nightwalkers. The Hottentot people of old had a vague notion of an evil spirit, and also knew of ghosts. They often used the Afrikaans word toor, which means to bewitch, and spoke of sorcerers, who were unlike the diviners and witch doctors, in that they used their powers of the occult to do harm and not good. These sorcerers were naglopers, Afrikaans, or night walkers, who carried out their nefarious deeds in the middle of the night. They were of both sexes, and their constant companions, their familiars, were the owl and the baboon. It is definitely stated by ethnologists, however, that the Hottentots only came to know of these creatures after they had become acquainted with the Bantu. After this, many Hottentots began to copy their superstitions. Night walkers often betrayed themselves by trying to save an owl or baboon from being killed. They roamed the night with these eerie friends, meeting at an appointed spot, similar as the European witches would meet at their caverns. They stripped themselves of all clothing and adorned their heads with human finger and toe bones. A lookout had to be posted at the graves of the newly dead, as the Naglapas would try to extract parts of the bodies for their rituals soon after burial. For this reason too, stones were often placed on the grave, which also served to prevent dogs or jackals from digging up the corpse. At night, night walkers would stealthily approach the huts, carefully walking backwards so that their footprints pointed away from their destination. The occupants, including the dogs, would fall into a deep sleep so that the night walkers could carry out their wicked deeds undisturbed. Small children were especially attractive to these ghouls, and many became infected with foul diseases. Adults, too, did not escape their attentions. The women night walkers had their way with the men of the hut, and their male counterparts paid their vile court to the ladies. The sleepers only became aware of this the next morning, when they awoke feeling weak and powerless in body and limb. Many a morning after the night before must have been blamed on a convenient night walker. It was chiefly to Bantu witch doctors that the Hottentots turned for an antidote to these doleful occurrences. The cure usually entailed cuts on the skin into which a medicine was rubbed. This caused such an itching and burning whenever a night walker approached that the sleeper was bound to awake before he was molested. One of the ways to catch a sorcerer was to place a doctored curry at the entrance of the hut. Should a night walker try to enter and step over the curry, it will hold him, and he would remain stuck until sunrise the next morning. The first person to awake and see him there must remain quite quiet. He must shake the other sleepers very gently without calling them by name. By this they would know all was not well. The first to speak to the intruder would be the head of the kraal, who was immediately summoned, and this would free the night walker. The punishment was then decided on, and usually painfully carried out. It was considered dangerous to stand in anyone's shadow, as he might have some magic medicine in his body, which could be harmful. Because of this, some Hottentots developed the habit of rising early when no shadows were yet cast by the sun. In this way, people were supposed to rid themselves of anything harmful which they might have picked up the previous evening, and could transmit to others if they rose after the sun was high.